Hey there, welcome to the channel.
Whispers carried on the winds at night. Ancient stones with stories etched in veins. Armenia's heartbeat runs through my lanes.
Today we're heading to Armenia, a land of ancient churches, legendary mountain, and some of the warmest people you'll ever meet.
Where the rivers kiss, dance of shadows in an endless abyss.
I want to take you with me on a personal journey through this small but fascinating country, right in the heart of the Caucasus.
Let's go, let's feel it, the rhythm of the
I'm not just talking about tourist spots. I'll also share some real first-hand stories from the perspective of an Iranian living and traveling in the region.
every step
All from the inside, no filters.
tangled in a seamless stitch. From temple peaks to the valleys.
We had about 2,100 kilometers ahead of us before reaching Yerevan. Since we were traveling as a family, we planned to make 3 stops along the way. One of the kids' favorite artists is Tatalu, a rapper who blends street rap with rap. Unfortunately, he's currently being held in Evin prison in Tehran, facing an initial death sentence. I really hope that ruling gets overturned in the next phase. If you're curious why a rapper could be sentenced to death, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. One thing that always catches our eye on these trips in the roadside vendors. Sometimes you can find great snacks and fresh fruit from them. No surprise here, along the way we saw several car accidents. Every year, thousands of people die in road crashes in Iran. This problem runs deep and is tied to the structure of Iran's economy. Around 80% of the cars on the roads are locally made with poor safety standards. And foreign cars are insanely expensive due to astronomical customs duty. I'll talk more about that in separate video. By lunchtime, we reached the city of Neshabur and stopped at Farahzad restaurant, one of the better places to eat in town. One of the biggest challenges of living in Iran is dealing with the constant stream of news and chaos in the Middle East, from wars to the crumbling economy. It's enough to wear anyone down. Just last year, the value of the tuman dropped by 70%. I'll break down the economic changes in Iran over the past few decades in another post. The maximum speed limit in Iran is 120 kilometers per hour, which honestly feels pretty high considering the poor quality of most cars here. What's the speed limit in your country? Let me know in the comments. In Iran, to control speed, we use speed bumps. The larger ones are usually made of asphalt and the smaller ones are made from compressed plastic. They're installed everywhere on highways and city streets, and honestly, they sometimes cause accidents instead of preventing them. Gasoline in Iran is extremely cheap, cheaper than water liter. You can fill up a full 60-liter tank for just about $2. I'll be covering that in a separate video. After hours of driving, we were getting pretty tired, so it was time to book a hotel. I visited a site called اقامت24.com and found a traditional style eco lodge that looked really charming. So I booked it and we headed over. We had dinner at the lodge and we're honestly surprised by how delicious it was. Everyone was exhausted, so after a quick walk, we went straight to our room and knocked out. The place was super clean, but the room was really small for a family of 4. The next morning, we explored the lodge a little and enjoyed its charm, had breakfast, and hit the road toward Tabriz. It was the last day of the Iranian calendar year, the final day of 1403, and we were actually on the road during the Nowruz moment, Persian New Year. To make the moment more exciting for the kids, I played a few Nowruz programs for them on YouTube. As the New Year arrived, we followed the Iranian tradition of giving Shadbash, New Year gifts, usually in the form of crisp, new bills. Traditionally, we placed the money inside a Shahnameh. made it back to Tehran, the capital of Iran. I lived here for years, but nowadays I avoid it because of the insane traffic and heavy air pollution. For lunch, the kids wanted a slice burger, and as always, what the kids want, we go with it. As we got close to Tabriz, we booked another hotel. Nothing like the cozy load from the night before. The next morning, after breakfast, we headed out early to try and reach the border and capture the start of a memorable international road trip. Quick tip: if you're traveling in Iran, avoid drinking roadside coffee. Just stick to instant coffee. You can always find hot water everywhere to make your own. At the border, Iranian customs charge you the price difference in food as if you're living with a full tank, so I top it off. I also grabbed some zip ties to attach the transit plates to the car. That was our final meal and last stop inside Iran. We paid around $5,800,000 2 months, about $65, to customs for full export clearance, just to be allowed to leave the country. I visited Armenia a few times before, even ran a small business in Yerevan for a while, so I know a bit of the language. It was already dark and I was super tired. But since it had started snowing heavily and we were heading into the mountains, we couldn't afford to stop. If we didn't get past the mountain passes to the town of Sisian, the road might have been closed for days. So we pushed on 400 kilometers of winding, dangerous mountain roads. We reached Geghard, and even in the pitch black night, the view was absolutely breathtaking, honestly. one of the most beautiful sights I've ever seen in my life. One of the things I love about Armenia is the abundance of coffee vending machines across the country. For just 25 to 35 cents, you can grab a decent cup of coffee. We were driving through a dark and foggy mountain road filled with hairpin turns, only terrifying and dangerous. But despite all the challenges, I pushed forward. Finally, we arrived in Sisian. It was 3:30 in the morning. We checked a few hotels, but they were all closed, lights off. We were exhausted and frustrated. Thankfully, the Sisian police came to our rescue and guided us to Basan Hotel, where we managed to get a nice suite. Armenian food always surprises us with how different it tastes from what we're used to in Iran. The tap water and spring water are incredibly clean and drinkable all over the country.
Sun's embrace, adventures waiting in a brand new place. Yerevan nights we'll see tonight. History whispers in soft moonlight. Family together, nothing feels better. Armenian skies make life feel brighter.
The scenery was untouched and beautiful, and with the help of GPS, navigating those curves felt less stressful. After a few hours of driving, we stopped for gas. Regular fuel was 500 AMD per liter, about $1.25, and premium was 530 AMD. Compared to Iran, where you could fill up 45 full tanks for the price of one in Armenia, it felt painfully expensive for us.
Feels like something new. We'll climb the castles, touch the stone, feel the echoes that feel like home. Savor the flavors that fill the air. Lovers breaking, we can't help but share. Our rising stand so proud. Forever calls us, the land speaks loud. You ever life will see tonight. History whispers in soft moonlight. Family together, nothing feels better. Adventures waiting in a brand new place.
Eventually, we made it to Yerevan.
Down the alley where shadows blend, strings are calling like a restless friend. The market hums with a nighttime glow.
Some of my favorite streets in the city are Amirian, Abovian, Tashir, Sarian, Pushkin, and the main Republic Square, Hanropetutian, Herapara. Driving in Armenia is very law-abiding. You must never switch lanes over a solid double line, and it's one of the most heavily fined violations.
From the crowd, ancient tales in each plucking string. Under the stars, the past takes wing.
بیاد بیایید.
Her six ring lamps on balconies flicker as I strum. The rhythm echoes like a heartbeat drum.
After a few phone calls to local real estate brokers, I found a newly built apartment for a fair night stay near Republic Square. Since it didn't have parking, I also rented a parking spot 200 meters away. It's worth noting that Armenia is very safe. Its global safety ranking is close to the UAE's. For a longer stay, renting an apartment is more affordable and convenient, and you can easily browse listings on list.am.
Her six ring lamps on balconies float. Ancient tales in each plucked string. Under the stars, the past takes wing. Persian East Street guitar sings aloud, a melody pulling me from the crowd. Ancient tales in each plucked string. Under the stars, the past takes wing.
After exploring a bit more of the city, we called it a night, resting up for tomorrow's adventures.
Think twice, it's just another day for you, you and me in paradise. Think about it. She calls out to the man on the street. Can see she's been crying. She's got blisters on the soles of your feet. She can't walk, but she's trying. Oh, think twice, 'cause it's another day for you and me in paradise. Oh, think twice, it's just another day.
Fascinating facts about Republic Square. It's the political, cultural, and social center of Armenia, built with pink Armenian tuffestone and dancing fountains. The tower holds the largest mechanical clock in Armenia, colorful lights and musical fountains every evening at 9 p.m. Built in 1924, renovated after Armenia's independence in 1991. Hidden beneath the square are military tunnels used in the past. If you visit Armenia, don't miss this spot. It's a different world in the day versus at night. We headed to Tahrir Street, one of the most vibrant streets in Yerevan. Why we love Tahrir Street? Cozy cafes, great restaurants, and trendy shops. Perfect for people watching and relaxing walks. Live music, lively bars, and youthful energy. Handicrafts and local art at the small boutique stores. It's known as Lovers Street because it's a favorite spot for couples. Armenian coins start from 10 to 500 dirham, and paper notes include 1,000 to 100,000 drams. At the end of Tashir Street, you'll find the Yerevan Opera House, a cultural icon with remarkable architecture and a rich history. Official name: Alexander Spandiarian National Academy Theatre of Opera and Ballet. Architect: Alexander Tamanian, who blended Soviet and classical styles. Opened January 1933. It includes two grand halls, concert hall, opera and ballet hall, ranking among the top 10 opera halls globally. Just 200 meters away, you'll find Swan Lake, a peaceful spot for relaxing or ice skating in winter. I suggested KFC to the kids. They were absolutely thrilled. After lunch, we wanted a mix of fun for the kids and some content for filming, so we drove over to Yerevan Mall, the largest shopping mall in Armenia, home to around 150 stores with both global and local brands, spread over 60,000 square meters, a 10D cinema and a big indoor amusement park, an international food court, a modern, luxurious design.
Here مثلا
After that, we wrapped up the day with a peaceful night walk, then headed back to rest and prepare for the next day's out-of-town trip, Garni and Geghard. Day trip to Garni, Armenia's last pagan temple. We grabbed lunch at a nearby restaurant and hit the road toward Garni. Garni is the only standing Greco-Roman temple in Armenia, and it shines like a gem in the mountains.
Walls that stories eternally hold.
Passing through several small villages, we arrived at the Garni entrance, where a few cozy cafes sold local goodies, lavashak, gato and more, adding a charming splash of color to the surroundings.
Oh, Yerevan, you cradle the past through temple halls where shadows cast. Sacred notes, they gently flow, guiding hearts.
Carrying nearly 2,000 years of history on its stone shoulders.
Resonate, a timeless chime, ringing whispers of the divine.
Built from pink basalt stones, each perfectly carved.
A love eternal, never dies.
Features 24 tall columns symbolizing the 24 hours of the day.
Through these halls, the spirit drums. Every moment, every thread.
A pyramid-style roof symbolizing the connection between earth and sky.
Oh, Yerevan, you cradle
Royal bathhouse with 1,500-year-old mosaics depicting Greek myth. A sundial that still works with amazing precision. The Geghard in Garni with towering volcanic rock walls. Locals say that on moonlit nights, the shadow of the goddess Anahit appears on the temple walls. Some believe this site is a gateway to a mystical world.
cradle the past. Through temple halls where shadows cast. Sacred notes, they gently flow. Guiding hearts where peace will grow.
Hands clasped tight in ancient stone. Whispers rise, not alone. Chandeliers like stars up high. Faith ignites beneath the sky.
After enjoying the magical views of Garni, we headed 15 kilometers down the road to our next stop, Geghard Monastery, carved by nature, blessed by faith, not built by men but gifted by the mountains.
Where heaven meets, a miracle each heart repeats. Through the walls of time we hear echoes rich and ever near.
Founded in the 4th century by Geghard Roshangar and expanded in the 13th century by the Zakarian family.
Hope reborn on holy wings. Painted saints on walls of gold. Stories
3D cross carvings etched deep into the rock, engraved mythical creatures on the walls. Holy Spring, located 27 meters deep inside the cave. Stone windows with ethereal natural lighting.
song. Eyes to skies, hands to hearts. Every prayer will provide. In Yerevan where heaven meets, a miracle each heart repeats. Through the shadows light will sing. Hope reborn on holy wings.
Sipping mineral-rich water from the sacred spring. Inside, the voices of singers echo for up to 7 seconds. A true natural amphitheater.
Hello? Anybody there? Echo! Good happiness. Hello? Anybody there? Echo! Hello? Anybody there? Echo!
Touching the cool, damp rock walls, refreshing in summer, warm in winter.
Hope reborn on holy wings. In Yerevan where heaven meets, a miracle each heart repeats. Through the shadows light will sing. Hope reborn on holy wings. Hope reborn on holy wings. Hope reborn on holy wings.
never grow old. Hymns resound through mountain air, blessings sheltered everywhere.
گساره بیکارایی روش میکنن.
چون انرژیزا میارن مدرسه میخورن.
خیلی بده.
Next, we visited Dalma Garden Mall, just 10 minutes from the city center by taxi. Price variety from budget brands like El Sivakiki to mid-range ones like Zara and Collins.
Turn right, then turn right.
17.
Cinema Star shows current international films with English subtitles, and you can find cozy restaurants. We did a quick walk around and had dinner at the food court.
که برای اولین بار بابا اینجا استرینج کرد.
It was our final day in lovely Yerevan. We visited the largest Yerevan city supermarket on Mashdot Avenue and then made our way to the Ararat Brandy factory.
آره گفت نه پدر کار نکرد.
The sun kissed the rooftops where memories stay.
Ararat Brandy Factory, established in 1887 by nurses Tehran, an Armenian Russian merchant.
Ararat spirit in every cheer. A toast to good times, the end is near. Yerevan, you painted the sky so bright.
During the Soviet era, it became the USSR's top cognac producer. Even Stalin loved it and gifted it to Churchill. Ararat brandies are aged between 3 to 50 years.
The city's alive where the past meets. Glass raised high with that apricot charm. Goodbye to the warmth, Yerevan's arms. Cobblestone whispers beneath my feet. The city's alive where the past meets. Glass raised high with that apricot charm.
Unfortunately, children weren't allowed inside due to the presence of alcohol in the air.
Winding through Cascade's embrace. City love that won't decay. I'll carry this vibrant goodbye day. Yerevan, you painted the sky so bright. City of dreams, your heart feels right. With every
top, Cascade, one of the most iconic landmarks in Yerevan. Construction began in 1970 by architect Jim Torosian, but was halted after the USSR collapsed. In 2009, Armenian American billionaire Gerard stepped in and turned it into a stunning modern art gallery.
Laughter and tears, it's all so clear. The city's a song you'll always hear. Yerevan, you painted the sky so bright.
The staircase has 572 steps and rises 118 meters.
Good vibes linger into the night.
Climb to the top for a breathtaking panorama of Yerevan and Mount Ararat.
Into the night.
Along the way, artificial waterfalls, hanging gardens, and bizarre sculptures.
Brushing the blue. Its shadow says farewell to you.
At night, it's beautifully lit and one of the most romantic photo spots in the city.
This city's a song you'll always hear.
Final dinner in Yerevan, Black and Ghost. If you're into steaks or gourmet burgers, Black and Ghost is a must visit. Goodbye Yerevan, on the road again. Time flew by and it was time to check out our apartment. None of us really wanted to leave, but had another adventure ahead, Istanbul. We packed up and called the booker, but funnily enough, he didn't come in person. He just told us to leave the key in the safe box by the door.
صبح که خورشید میچرخد به آرامی در آسمون، خیابانه ها عطر وطن دارن نشانی از جوانان، هوای خاکی که میبوید دلت را باز کنم، میدانم خانم همینجاست که مرا در بر گرفته، خانه ای که دل میخواد و روحم را میپرورند، باغایی که با زمزم امید همیشه میخوانم، میرسم با عشق به دیاری که پر از جادوست، سرزمینی که قلبم همیشه براش میتپد دوست.
We drove to Tabriz, stayed the night, and the next morning headed to Tehran. That evening, I booked our flight to Istanbul, ready to start a whole new chapter of this journey.
صدای خنده های کودکانه تو کوچه، زمزمه مادران کنار گلدان ساده، چای داغ سفرهای از عشق و نان زحمت، دوباره زنده شدم کنار این همه محبت، خانه ای که دل میخواد و روحم را میپرورند، هایی که بازم زن امید همیشه میخوانم میرسم با عشق به دیاری که پر از جادوست سرزمینی که قلبم همیشه براش میتپد دور
Every citizen receives a yearly travel subsidy of $500, exchanged at a rate about 10% below the market price. However, at that time, the gap between the free market dollar rate and the travel dollar rate was almost 20%. Thanks to this, the entire cost of our flight tickets to Istanbul, the exit tax, and even our airport hotel expenses were covered.
ایران من این تو هستی که دلها را آرامش میدهی
If you've enjoyed this glimpse into Eastern living so far and want to learn from my 40 years of experiences along with my family living in Iran and across the East, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. Our next video will cover our 14-day adventure in Istanbul, where we'll share must-know insights about this beautiful city. Goodbye for now.